Now let's head on down the trail of ideas inside Photoshop. Now whenever I sit down and trying to think of something to do in Photoshop, I don't just sit there and think and then let it come to mind. I actually dive in and start playing with something. Just really does depend on what the image is. This, in this case, this is a stock image I got off Fotolia.com. Of course, you can use any image you use that's off your phone, off your camera, anything, and just go in there and start playing around with it and try different things, and then those ideas will lead to other things, and it happens all the time. And this is an interesting scenario here. I was having some fun playing with this image the other day, and one thing led to another, and it just turned out to be a hilarious bit. It actually turned out to be a really cool image, and then I just had to go and mess it up in the end. So let's see where we go with this. So on this image here, I'm just going to go in and grab my rectangular marquee tool here, because I'm looking at this image when I looked at it, and I'm thinking, well, it looks pretty cool, and of course I've got my movie hat on, so I'm thinking, I'm thinking movie poster. So I'm looking at it, and I'm liking the lighting up here in the upper corner, the upper right corner. Down here, this foreground area, not so much. This tree over here, nah, not too much. I'm liking that either. So I like this area here. So I'm just going to draw a selection over the area that I like. I'm just getting just out of the sunlight there in the ground area there, and then just from keeping it from going to that branch right there. Yeah, let's get right about there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and press Command or Control J, copy that selected area to a new layer. Now, when you're messing around with images and just playing with abstract design, don't be afraid to bend the rules and stretch and do different things to your images and see what kind of results you get. For instance, here, I'm going to go ahead and put this in free transform by pressing Command or Control T. And then I'm going to grab the bottom middle handle here and stretch it down to the bottom of the document. Now, already, this takes on an interesting look. It's stretched, so it gives the appearance of the trees being much taller than they actually are. It kind of has this kind of surreal look to it versus what the original is. So then I was thinking, all right, well, let's take it further from that. So I'm going to, again, make another duplicate of that layer. Go under the Edit menu, go to Transform, and choose Flip Horizontal. And let's just basically mirror flip that image over. So that's looking pretty cool. Well, I'm going to go over and add a layer mask to that duplicate layer, and just use a simple gradient. I'm going to use the radial gradient this time. The reason I'm not using linear is that if I do linear like this, it's going to take away a lot more than I want it to, and I really want it to take away more in some areas and less in others. So I'm going to use the radial gradient. Foreground to transparent is my gradient type, and I'm just going to basically just draw a gradient up this edge here so the ends blend together. I'm not going to worry too much about this little grass patch here. I'm going to take care of that in just a moment. We'll just bring some of that back slightly there. There we go. Now that looks pretty good. All right. So it's pretty balanced. We're getting this kind of mirror image. We're going to take care of that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer. And then go over here in the toolbar and grab the patch tool. Now up here in the options bar, I've got it set to content aware and then very loose for the adaptation. And I've got sample all layer checked because I want to put this on a new layer. I don't want to blend it with the existing image. So I'm just going to go and draw around that little grass patch area there and just resample that into the image. Oftentimes you're going to see duplicates happen, so I'm just going to take care of these little areas here just to kind of smooth out the road element in this overall image here. There we go. Take that one there, or sample it from over there. There we go. So now I noticed over here on the side there's this tree that I obviously flipped over, and the lighting is coming in from both directions, So that's not going to work. That's not really reality, is it? So we're going to have to cheat a little bit. So what I'm going to do, because I like the way the trail's looking, the foreground elements are looking, but these trees right here are obviously getting light from different directions. So I'm just going to I'm going to select the layer that contains this element on the left side here. Use the lasso tool and just draw a very loose selection around that little cluster of trees on this layer right there. Then I'm going to press Q to go in quick mask mode, and then go under filter, go to blur, and choose Gaussian blur. I'm going to do a very large blur, about 50 pixels on this, and then we'll go ahead and click OK, and you can see it softens the edges of that selection. I'm going to press Q once again, and let's press Command J, and that will bring the selected element. Actually, I'm going to undo that a couple times. It was a little too much blur, I think, there. Plus, I am missing some bottom of the tree here. So this is one of those things when you're experimenting, playing around. So again, press Q, go under Filter, Gaussian Blur. We'll do about a 45 pixel blur. It doesn't need to be quite that big. Press Q again, back in the selection, Command J, and then let's just go and Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, and now those trees, we'll just rotate slightly here. Now we do see some of the original layer there, but that's okay because they're blending in and we're getting this kind of surreal look. But now the lighting on the trees looks a little bit more accurate. There we go. All right. So now, got to this point, I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. It's, you know, it's got some interesting elements here. There's that kind of middle element there. It's kind of mirroring some effects. Now, if you didn't want that, you could always go into that layer that contains your little patches and just go over here and just try and trim things up or just, you know, make things a little different. I actually like the way it's kind of mirroring that effect in the middle there. It makes it a little more mysterious because the trees on the edge here are different. You know, they're kind of leaning in different ways, but, you know, just kind of look different. So, but we're just experimenting, so we're just seeing what we can do. So at this point, I got to the where I wanted to think, well, I want to give it kind of a more cinematic look. And this is where I tend to use HDR toning a lot. So I'm going to actually go into the image menu and go down here to duplicate and make a completely new copy of this document. Then I'm going to flatten it. Let's go to Flare, Flatten Image. Cannot run HDR toning on a layered document. So we'll go into the image menu, go to Adjustments, and choose HDR Toning. And inside here, I'm going to go over here, and I never use any color information when I use HDR toning. I really am just going for the grittiness of it. So I'm going to take the saturation down to -100, and then boost the detail up quite a bit here. And then it's just a matter of tweaking the edge glow settings here just a little bit. We'll bring the exposure down slightly and bring the gamma up a little bit. And there we go. So it tends to just kind of punch areas out, and the contrast really bunches up there. There we go. So again, I could play with this a little bit longer, but again, the main sliders you'll notice are the detail, or basically the tone and detail settings and the edge glow. Just go ahead and tweak those, and then you will get this kind of gritty look. And it's a black and white because we took the color information out. So I'm going to take this and drag and drop it back over to my existing file. And let's make sure it's at the top of the layer stack here. There we go. And then I'm going to go under Image, Adjustments, and do Hue Saturation. Because I'm going to colorize this layer. Let's check on Colorize here. And I want it to be more of a kind of an orange color, and let's just kind of boost that up here. And again, when I was originally playing with this all happened by accident. I was just playing with colors and then trying different blend modes, and ultimately I discovered if you go and change this blend mode from normal to hue, look at the image now. It's got this kind of cool, soft, warm tone to it, different from the original. There's the original. So it's really kind of interesting. And you can go through and just try different blend modes and see what kind of results you get just by holding on the Shift key and the plus sign and just toggle through your blend modes. And that's how I stumbled upon that hue setting right there. I thought that looked really cool. It had this kind of soft, interesting kind of orange glow to it with this kind of misty fog in the background. Really cool. So I got to this point, I'm thinking, well, what would we add? Well, we can add somebody walking down the trail, perhaps, you know. So I have found this image of this girl walking, just having a carefree day. So we'll just take that and drag it on over and put her right here on the trail. There we go. Now I'm going to place that layer underneath that orange filled layer just so it kind of takes on the color there. I'm going to scale her down a little bit and just put it right there. Now, I'm going to make a little bit of a shadow on her there, just on the ground here. And to do that, here's a cool trick. I'm going to make a new layer underneath that layer containing her. So we're on a blank layer. Go and get the Smudge Tool. And set the foreground color to black, and then just get a nice soft edge brush here. I'm just got a nice soft round brush. And I'm going to go up here in the options bar and set the strength to 75%. And then make sure you have finger painting checked on. And if I go over here just below her feet and just stroke down, it's going to give me a couple little black strokes using that kind of finger painting. But now I'm going to take this and drop it back down to 25% for the strength, and then hold down the Option key, which will disable the finger painting settings, and then just swipe left or right and just kind of smear the shadow into that ground area. There we go. And if it needs a little bit of a shadow drop, we'll just take that down a little bit there, about 75. There we go. So now it looks like she's walking down this peaceful, mysterious trail. Then I got to this point, and I'm thinking, well, it looks pretty good, and this could be done. So we've really come from a long way from this simple trail shot, which really isn't bad, but I just wanted to use other parts of it and turn it into something like this. But then the day started to get a little weirder and a little bit more menacing because I couldn't stop. one of the curses I have is that when I get going and I get in the zone, I just can't stop, no matter how good the image is. So on a new blank layer, I'm going to go in and actually, let's make this a little bit more saturated with the color here. There we go. And then on that new blank layer, I'm going to go and sample. I'm just going to option click down here on the bottom to get this kind of dark, sample that kind of dark color in the foreground. Once again, using the gradient tool, this time I am going to use a linear gradient and going from foreground to transparent. Just going to start at the top and drag down. Now it looks like a simple gradient, doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to change the blend mode. And the blend mode I think works pretty well. So let's start with overlay. We'll see what we get. No, not really liking that. No, we'll just go down the list here. No. Ooh. Vivid light's actually not too bad. What do we get with linear light? Not too bad. All right, so it's looking a little bit more menacing this way. So if we've got the kind of red, fiery, sky happening here, then it stands that we should add some actual fire, because things are starting to shape up pretty bad in these woods here. So here I have a random collection of fire elements I also got on Fotolia. And really cool, quickly extract fire elements from a black background like this. Just go in the Channels palette and command click on the red channel. It's going to load the brightness of that channel as an active selection. You'll see it's showing most of the detail of the fire. Back in the layers, I'm going to press Command J. It copies those selected elements to its own layer. If I turn off the background there, you can see. But, however, it did pick up a little bit of the black in that background there, just around the edges there. So here's a cool trick here. Go to Layer, the Layer menu, and go down here to Matting and choose Remove Black Matte. And then we'll get the natural glow of the fire, removing all those black elements there. So now I'm just going to go in and grab a couple of these fire elements. Let's grab this one here first. Drag it on over and rotate it, and we'll just kind of set this tree on fire here. Why? Because we can. And again, this is where you see when you have an idea and it goes somewhere, pick a place to stop, because if you're going to get in that creative zone, you're probably going to keep going until you have something completely weird. So I'm just using warp to kind of warp this fire so it looks like it's kind of blowing in the wind from this tree here, and I'll just press enter. Now to blend it a little bit better with the tree, I'm just going to double click on it and use my blend if sliders here. In the underlying layer, just hold down the option key and split the slider and let the fire blend into the tree. Now it really looks like it's eating into that tree there. There we go. And let's add another fire element. Let's we'll go and get this one right here. I like to have these kind of like climbing the tree here. This forest things are really going bad in this place today. So the forest is burning. We've got brush fire. This young lady's walk has turned into a very bad day very quickly. So just take that down and just maybe add one more fire. Let's duplicate this existing fire element. So I'm just going to option drag that over here and scale it down. Let's just kind of have it coming off that tree right there. And I'll just use that blend if to blend it a little bit more. Since it's further in the background, it's going to have more elements between us and it. So we'll just kind of blend it a little bit more there. And that's just, we probably should stop there before it just gets really horrifying in this image here. But you can see where an idea, just starting with an image, can ultimately lead to something very destructive or a lot of fun, So you can see this could be any kind of movie. It could be this kind of movie where it's a lovely day in the enchanted forest, or it can be a horror film where there's fire and all these menacing things happening in the woods. It really could go either way. But hopefully it gives you a few tips on what you can do if you're trying to find the idea, explore around, just dive into something. It doesn't even really matter what the image is, because one thing will lead to another. And just see where it goes. See where your imagination takes you. See what other images you can introduce to it, and just play. Always, all the years I've been doing this, I always suggest people just play around, experiment, and be sure to have fun with it. See you guys later.